Okay, we are moving in plan specifications and estimate, also known as PS&E. And our two presenters, when I got here in October 2016, somewhere in that time, I spoke the first time with Christine, talked about training with this project I was doing, and I knew from the instant I was talking to her on the phone that we would be working together a lot, and her enthusiasm and energy for her work is awesome. With Melissa, where we were at the point it was Strategic Business Services, she was doing a rotation from Region 2, and in our staff meetings, she would do what we used to call the Melissa Chronicles, and she literally would walk us through how a project is done, and it was so helpful for us. So it really gives me great pleasure to have them here this morning, the incomparable Christine and Melissa.
So I'll just begin. So I've been doing project delivery for about 5 years now, and hopefully their takeaway for this PS&E portion is you're coming to the end of the project delivery phase, and this is it. So it can go really well. It can go not so well. So today we'll kind of dive into that. I do want to just say you are not alone in this effort of your PS&E package. Your project control office specialists are there to help you. So at any time during your PS&E preparation, even back at advanced plans, engage them early, communicate often, and let them know. And that will make your process a whole lot easier. So I'll just begin. Let's see. So today we are going to go over the phase gate with the region submittal. I'll be speaking about that. Melissa will be sharing more about the project controls office acceptance and review. What is PS&E? When does PS&E occur? We'll review the PS&E checklist in detail. So get ready, guys. We're going to dig in. And we'll go over a little bit about the ProjectWise workflow and the timeline associated with the PS&E deliverables. Okay, so what is PS&E? PS&E provides certainty of the readiness of a project's plans, specifications, and estimates for bid, advertisement, and award through the ODOT procurement office. The region management submittal of the PS&E to PCO is through the phase gate process that provides the certainty of, I already said this, sorry. So anyways, I just want to say that prior to you hitting the procurement office, your region will have a specific PS&E submittal process. So checking in with your area manager, your construction engineers, finding out what they are expecting, and your district manager, engaging them early. The PS&E primary references, the delivery manual. I'm going to click on this. This is your go-to. Everything you need to know is pretty much in the document. It's online. You can print it out. I like to print it out because I like hard copies. But you can go to your project controls office website. You'll scroll down, and there it is, the PS&E delivery manual. So any questions you have, it'll walk you through the process. It'll explain what they're expecting on their end of things and what you should be submitting. And just go back. Sorry. The other two documents that really drive the PS&E practices are the PDO2, Project Development Decision Structure, and the PS&E submittal to bid opening. The PDO2, it provides direction to the business lines for state and local projects, specifically are specified accountability, roles, decision-making requirements, milestone, and deliverables. And PDO7 provides the direction for the time period between PS&E bid opening. Actions that pertain to the TPM, including the pre-bid meeting and anticipated items. So these will be covered in more detail when we go over the checklist. Vidal Francis also brought up PDO 8. So all these documents are going to be updated, but having read these and understood them, they will drive the process of PS&E submittal a lot easier if you know the background. Okay, so when does PS&E happen? The project lifecycle shows that the PS&E phase is after the PS&E phase gate. However, your PS&E package is not ready for formal submittal until your checklist is complete. Your project submittal date is originally scheduled through the PCO office at the conclusion of the project initiation phase, when your project is first baseline. And again, we learned that as your schedule changes, please keep them in the loop, and you can work with Michelle Gauthier right now as our resource, and she will help walk you through that and keep your STIP coordinators in the loop of those dates as well. So your PS&E submittals are due at 8 a.m. on your submittal date. If it's late, it's late. So as a TPM, I generally try to have my submittal in by Friday. I set that as my date, and then I can have my weekend to myself. But that way it gives you some time. And let's see, the PS&E due date is usually about 7 weeks before bid opening. So here's a copy of the master bid letting schedule. This is the spreadsheet that the PCO office uses to schedule your projects. It's kind of my go-to resource. If you do not see your project on this list, it's not scheduled. So you need to make sure it's there. They will look at each bidlet date to ensure that there's no two projects in the same region that are similar bidding at the same time. And on it, you will be able to see the contract number, region, any information about who you are, and then also the QA person. So for instance, this project here, Melissa, you were the QA specialist that reviewed it. And Eli, you were the construction estimator on that one. So those will also be helpful because you can have your resources at hand when you're going through the submittal process. So let's see. I'll just go back to this. The other two documents that we see right now is the 12-month contractor tentative schedule of contract lettings report that Michelle puts out, as well as the 7-month lock-in report. So those are other opportunities to see where your project is scheduled, and make sure your MS project dates are meeting those dates, as well as the ones published in STIP FP. I was going to take you there, but we can't get to STIP FP today, so I apologize in advance. So the checklist for PS&E submittal to ProjectWise, we're going to open that as well. So everyone should have received a copy of the most up-to-date checklist. As well, I printed off one part of the submittal, the ProjectWise, the lifecycle milestone process. So it just kind of has the visual of what everything looks like in ProjectWise. Did it go? Oh, no. Okay, there we are. View. Okay. So generally, you fill in the gray areas. But I'm going to go over some items that have just caused some hiccups. So just to note, if you look at the slide, well, you're actually seeing the live document, but in the PowerPoint, when I printed this off in September, there's been like 3 changes to this document since September. I see that there's a construction EA end date, so that's new. So just so you know, when you are submitting your project, make sure you have the latest and greatest form. So you'll enter your key number, your region, your county, your title. This one is make sure your project title on the plan sheet should match the title sheet used within the special provisions exactly. And project title is supposed to match the STIP exactly when spoken. And Sometimes you'll see the word section or project at the end of your plan sheet, and it's not included in the STIP. That's only because they have limited characters. So include the word section or project on yours. So then you'll enter your PS&E date, the number of ad weeks, and your bid opening date. The quantity of bidding, special provisions, and plans for the PM office, have a conversation with your resident engineer. Find out how many plans and specs they want for their crew to be working on the project. My crew usually wants about 10, so I always get them 10, but always ask. Then what I was going to share with you earlier is that your EA, you should know your EA, you've been charging to it, but it's also on STIP FP. So if you click on down to your phase, like PE phase, you can click on it and it'll share your EA. It'll tell you your federal aid or state number and any other information. So again, this is another tool to make sure what you're submitting on your checklist is also matching STIP FP. The construction EA end date, Dave Polly was here earlier talking about plans, but he also mentioned specs. So if you go to 180.5H, yes, it will tell you the exact date that your project is supposed to complete on. And you'll enter, I have to click. Usually I'm click happy. Oh, I don't have two hands. Okay, try this again. Okay. So again, we used to access this through the PCO website. They actually have a link to the calculator. If, for instance, this isn't working, you would enter your date, and it would automatically calculate your end date. You'll want to concur with your construction office that there's, and the plans and spec designers, that there's no plant establishment or there's a 1-year plant establishment. Sometimes there's 2, so. So just moving on. So we'll go back to the type of work. This is another item. Do not use the type of work noted in STIP FP. That is a funding source, and work, it's not the same. The type of work is also not the same as the class of work listed in the special provisions. There are 8 major types of work: grading, drainage, structures, paving, signing, illumination, signals, and roadside development. So you can refer to the guides that Dave Polly was speaking about earlier for any additional information on that. Your class of work will be coming directly from the special provisions page. And your total estimated cost, this is coming from your spec writer generally who produces the estimate. You'll put the date and your program STIP FP funding. Again, I wish I could really show you that. But it's the first column, and it's only your construction phase. It's not your total estimate. It says that on here, but some people have missed that, including me, as of the date. And then if your project STIP construction funding exceeds or is under what your region's estimate is, you need to explain and have the justification. So I advise, if you know this ahead of time, give PCO a heads up that there's a shortage, and tell them your plan and let them know. Get some buy-in from their end as well. They've seen this happen before. They'll know when it's a good time to buy in and when it's not. And then also you'll have been talking to your area manager and the sponsors as well and determining the plan of action. If there's going to be a cancellation of a project, you'll need to show that a STIP amendment is at least pending, if not already completed by the time you get to add. So statement of project readiness, hopefully everyone gets to click that all your project requirements and deliverables are completed and included in the package. If you are missing any, you have to complete a PDO2. Michelle Gauthier has examples of PDO2 letters that are well written. And I can just go to one of those actually, we'll see. See if I have that. But in general, you'll provide a brief explanation as to why the item was not complete, when it will be, who is responsible for the outstanding item, and any printing permissions, as well as the risk if this PDO2 item is not completed by the anticipated date. So if you have a resource that's also late, have them help you write this, letter as well. So I'll go back. And then finally, just on the first sheet, you've got signature boxes. When you create your document for signatures, make sure you're adding 5 signature boxes, not just your signature, your tech center manager's signature, and the area manager's signature. You'll want to add the 2 for the project controls office. Otherwise, you'll have to resubmit the document. Okay, so page 2, everyone ready? So I just want to make sure we're all the same because, again, the versions have changed. Yeah, okay. So I'll go over basically, it's in my sheet. That's why. Okay. Okay. Well, maybe I skipped it. Apologies, everyone. There it is. Sorry. All right. Okay, so in the first column, I'm going to go over the deliverable, who's responsible to produce it, and then in the format section, I'm just going to note the set that the document goes in. So it's going to go in one of these. So just if you want to take notes, you can do that way. So the plans, obviously the designer, the drafter will submit that. That goes in the plan set. The bridge plan, same thing. The designer will submit it, and that goes in the plan set. Your environmental documentation, that will come from your rec, and that gets placed in the PS&E set. Your special provisions come from your spec writer, and that goes in the bid set. Your POR certs and special provision sections that are stamped come from your spec writer, and they'll assemble those, and that goes in the bid set, as well as the special provision integrity certification goes in the PS&E set. Your civil rights goals and target values, the spec writer, that sometimes depends on the region. Either you send an email to the Office of Civil Rights or your spec writer does. But you'll get those values, and then those documentations go into the PS&E set. Same with the OGT hours on the next item below. That goes in the PS&E set. Your spec writer will also produce your cost estimate in pre-con, and that gets in the PS&E set. You likely won't be able to view that formatted of the file. And then the time estimate for construction will be produced by the spec writer in most regions and gets placed in the PS&E set. And the fuel schedule and steel escalation worksheets, those come from the spec writer again and placed in the PS&E set. So what you are responsible for starts with the project risk assessment summary, and we do have a new tool that's coming, but it's not in place yet. So I just wanted to kind of walk you through the risk insurance portion because it is a little more challenging than first assumed. So first off, everything in the blue column, the risk calculation values, these documents, PD 15 glossary, risk scoring sheet, probably don't have to go to the operational notices. But the first 3 documents, I suggest you print them out, you fill in all your project details, and then go to the site and do your work, because you do not get to go back and forth. You will lose your work. You cannot call an engineer and say, wait a second, is the ADT really this? And then go back. It will lose your items, and you'll have to start over again. So just so you know, because it's happened. So this is what it looks like. It'll ask the number of intersections within your project limits, your daily travel, your functional classification that can come from your STIP. A lot of these you can just ask your resources and get confirmation, but as you're going through your package, you'll want to ensure that what it says in the TMP and what you're placing in this document is the same for any of your data, or what it's saying in the plan sheets or specs. So your number of work zone restrictions, that will come from your traffic control person. Again, with your SPIS locations, you can look these up on TransGIS, but I still strongly suggest that you check in with your resources. I probably won't go through all these just due to time, but it tells you how to answer the questions, and you'll calculate your risk at the end of the project. It will tell you how much insurance you need. You'll save your calculations, and it creates a little document, and this is the document that you'll be placing in your ProjectWise file. Actually, it's not going to create it, if I remember right. But it'll create a Word type document, and and that's what goes in your, there it is. That's what it looks like. You get to fill in your QA engineer and your spec writer. And prior to putting it in for to your set for PS&E submittal, send it to, it's not Twyla Kobos, is it Zach Cartwright now? So send it to Zach. They have the risk email that we can send to, the group email. And get the concurrence, because even if you think things might be all right, just get their buy-in ahead of time. So let's see. So we've talked about risk. And I had pictures. I think after that is the right-of-way cert, and that comes from your right-of-way resource, and that goes in your PS&E set. Your utility cert goes from your utility resource, and that's in the PS&E set. Your Buy Waiver America, you would be working on that if you had one, and that would go with also with your spec writer, and you'll place that in the PS&E set. Your PDO2 exception letter, again, that is the document that's signed by your region manager. That would go in your PS&E set if you had one. And your sign mobility considerations checklist. So just one thing I wanted to say about that is that it's not just your checklist, it's all the email traffic that you've had with motor carrier during the discussions to determine what the approvals are. You take your checklist, all those emails, make a PDF, and that's what gets submitted. So then we'll go to the next piece, which starts with FHWA requirements. I do not have a sheet on that. So we'll go, how do I? I just wanted to go to the live document, but maybe not. There we are. Okay, so this is something that you will put together, and you'll be using your STIP coordinator as a resource. So section 1 is basically you and your STIP coordinator. So again, contact your STIP coordinator to ensure all amendments have been approved, and if not, what is their approval status? Does the current STIP match the project description? You'll want to make sure there's concurrence there. And has FHWA approved the interchange modification regarding additional interchanges to the interstate system? You'll contact your senior interchange engineer. I think LSA Alimu is that person right now. Design documentation, all your design exceptions should be there. What I like about this page is there's actually a link to track, so you can find out ahead of time where your design exceptions are in the approval process. Bridge design deviations, again, your bridge engineer will put that in, but you'll be helping coordinate it. Your statements of technical review, these differ in the different regions, but you'll be producing a document to ensure that all your, SDRs are on file. And then 1R projects. So this basically is an email that you'll send to your region roadway manager as well as payment services manager, and you'll get the concurrence that yes, this is a 1R project, and that it's going to be included in the 1-hour project spreadsheet list. And letters of public interest finding. So I'm going to go back to whoops. I don't know what happened there. We'll go back. But letters of public interest finding. So have all your LPIFs been approved? These examples of these are patented or proprietary materials, agency-supplied materials, salvage materials, work performed by utilities, railroad, agency forces, publicly owned equipment, and mandatory disposal sites. Again, guidance for all of this is located on the PCO website, and I will see if I can go back there. It's not going to let me. Well, we'll just skip it. Sorry, guys. Oh, here we go. If I can do it. There we go. Okay. So there are templates that you can find on the PCO website. Again, that's the Project Controls Office. You'll scroll down, and there's a lot of documents there, but you'll find it. There's programmatics, and then there's ones that are more specific to any needs. And again, if you can do this ahead of time, that would be great. So advanced plans, you'll want to be at least having all these identified. And I think PCO has requested that you would submit these at least 2 weeks prior to PS&E. Actually, minimum of 2 weeks. They would like to approve those. And I'm stuck. Okay. Leslie, I might see if I can get out of here. Okay. Well, we'll go to bid reference documents. Let's see if that'll work. It's not letting me go. Okay. So bid reference documents. So these are all the required reports and bid products. So PCO or OPO will actually provide, post the contract plans and specs, but everything else you are responsible for posting on the eBid site. So these are documents that help the contractor make a more informed bid. And these include as-construct drawings, environmental permits, geotechnical, hazmat, any kind of hydraulic report, land use permits, your environmental permit. Let's see if I have, and any of your 3D design items, public interest findings, all the LPIFs that you'll have written, your right-of-way certs, and all your traffic documents, so your TMP, your traffic mobility checklist, and your work zone decision tree. So I've heard some TPMs say, oh, I don't have any eBid documents. You always have eBid documents, so make sure you are uploading those. Let's see. The next item is the eBid's digital design data letter. That's something that the roadway engineer is producing, and you can help coordinate those discussions with the CPM office to make sure that their packages are going to be ready when they need it to be ready. And we can move along to special provisions. So we could talk about a little bit about the mandatory pre-bid meeting. The pre-bid meeting must be approved by your area manager, and it has to be coordinated with the PCO staff. So if you have a pre-bid meeting, Vidal had spoken about this earlier, in that it's an opportunity for the contractors to come learn more about the project. So you'll have to add time to your ad. It's generally a minimum of 2 weeks, and PCO will want to know when and where this is being scheduled. I like to have the meeting at least 2 weeks after ad, and then allow for 3 weeks worth of questions. It just gives everyone time to look at everything and then come and meet, and then you have 2 weeks to submit questions, 2 to 3 weeks actually. So, oh, thank you. So we're back at eBids. I just wanted to show you where this is. And this is where all your projects are listed, and you can go to user support, and that will share how to load your documents. The thing to note is that you cannot load the documents from ProjectWise to eBids. You have to put them onto another, even your desktop works, and then you can move them. It just won't let you do it. So if you go to eBids, which there's the link on your checklist, it directs you to the site, and you would go to your PS&E bid reference user guide, and it will walk you through step by step. So, there's classes you can take on this as well, but it shows you how to do it, and how to name them, where to place everything. If you do not see this screen where your document was uploaded successfully, it's not there. So make sure you always see that every time. Let's see. So I think I've covered that. Anticipated items. Again, this is coordination between your office and the CPM office. You're going to want to make sure that's also showing up in your estimate. But there's some programmatic and anticipated items, such as your migratory bird monitoring, APHIS. I'm going to minimize this. And utility connections, public outreach. That's pretty standard for every project, so you really should be having a programmatic LPIF for every project. Railroad flagging, archaeological site monitoring, and paint coating inspection by third parties. Those all require LPIFs. And they require, if they're not programmatic, at least a minimum of 2 weeks for approval. Spec changes, that will be done by your spec writer, and all the concurrence should be granted ahead of time. You'll want to be seeing your specs all at advanced plans, no later. So that when you hit the PS&E phase, if you're looking at any DOJ review or if it's not completed, you'll be wanting to check your schedule if you can meet any dates. The Section 280s, your erosion and sediment control, this is a little unique because not a lot of people knew how to do this, but it is basically getting concurrence from your tech resource, which we met earlier this week. His name's Robert Marshall. I have my erosion and sediment control engineer or landscape architect will send them an email gaining their concurrence that this is either a type 1 project, type 2, or type 3. 1 is no risk, 2 is low risk, and 3 is high risk. And that just means that certain specs would be included in the project. So I'm going to move along. Let's see, special pre-qualifications. This would be discussed earlier on in the project, but if you have that, ensure that it's in the special provisions. You and the spec writer will be checking that. Your certifications from railroad and utilities, make sure that they're in there and placed in. Any agreements that will be on your end to make sure they're complete. And general. This is what I learned yesterday, that the CACI are the #1 outstanding PDO2 exception letters. So making sure those are in. And then I'll just kind of go down to the stormwater operations manual. Again, you'll be coordinating with your hydraulic engineer on that and ensuring that everything has been submitted to tech services and that those manuals are in place. Your TARO rights. In our region, we have someone who lets us know if there's TARO to assign to a project, but find that out, get that email, and you'll submit it as well as part of your package. And then it comes to the ProjectWise submittal. So you guys all have that sheet. It is essentially, you send an email. It's located in our ProjectWise standards. You'll send it to PCO. There's a templated form where it just has links to your PS&E set, the plan set, the bid set, the completeness set, and the eBid set. your signature, and we send it that way, and you are ready to go. So I'm going to let Melissa take over.
Morning, everyone. Are you all still awake? You're so quiet. So, Project Controls Office. We formerly OPL, so that's you may recognize that more. But this is who we are. We facilitate the processing of your PS&E submittals prior to contracting. We schedule your projects for bidlet. We perform the quality assurance. Prior to advertisement, we create the final engineer's estimate. And we also write the advertisement. We process addenda and letters of clarification, and we recommend award after the bids come in. And as Christine mentioned, while PCO is tasked with QA at PS&E, we can do earlier review if we have the time to do that. I just earlier this week did advanced plan review and sent comments back. So we have the ability to do that as our time allows, and all you need to do is call us and let us know that that's something that you would like us to do. So you can see we are a few staff down right now, currently recruiting for a manager and a QA specialist. So you saw our website, and you can see from our slide that I did this before our website was updated, so it now does say Project Controls Office. However, I will note that our website address still says pre-letting, so that is correct. That's an address thing that, you know, there are links out there across many different websites and pages, and electronically, if we change that name, we'd break a bunch of links. So my understanding is that's going to remain pre-letting in the address, so just be aware. On the website, as Christine mentioned, are links to many different manuals and templates. This is a fantastic resource for you guys. Everything that you need to know about PS&E you'll find here. You will also find links to the LPIF manuals, and you will find links to standard boilerplate specifications, as well as unique specifications and everything in between. So once we intake the project, then it's reviewed for completeness. And once Michelle does that and checks that all of the items on the checklist have been submitted, she will accept the project. If there are missing items, she'll let you know that there are deficiencies that you need to correct. Once she accepts that, then we start the QA review. What we're looking for is consistency in the documents, compliance with FHWA requirements, and with our ODOT standards. So things like, do the plans and the special provisions say the same thing, right? Are there bid items for all the work that's shown? So you heard Dave Pauly talk a little bit this morning about what those standards are, right? The contract plans development guide, the contract plans manual, the roadway design manual, the CAD manuals, bridge traffic has, I think, 4 different CAD manuals for each of their disciplines, so there's a lot out there. We're also checking to make sure that there's concurrence on changes to boilerplate specs. So All of your measurement and payment sections have to be checked by the measurement and payment specialist over at construction. That's Gene Wilburn. And the senior specification engineer has to comply with all changes as well, or concur with all changes as well. That's Dan Anderson. And he, I think you heard from him earlier this week too, didn't you, about specifications? So he's a good resource for your teams. Once the review is done, then I'm going to write up all my comments and then send them back to you and say, here's all the things that we need to correct on the project. And it really varies how many comments there are. I had one this week that had 2 comments. I've had one previously with over 100 comments for corrections. So you can save yourself some time in the end by doing QC before you submit that package. We can do corrections without addendum prior to the advertisement, right? So when you submit the package, we review it, we send you the comments back, and there's generally 2 weeks or so before we have to send everything over to OPO to go to advertisement, where corrections can be made. If we do make corrections to specifications, however, note that your PORs will have to be re-signed by the engineers of record. So, common errors on the PS&E package, right? These are things that I see over and over and over again when I'm reviewing. One of them is, this is an excerpt from your index sheet, and there's a certain table that we use for bridge structures, right, that include that column for the bridge structure number and the BDS drawing number. BDS drawing numbers is for filing, and those have to be in the index. So you'll want to make sure that those are included. Common error number 2, not all standard drawings are listed on the index. I come across this quite often. So next error, forgetting the V number. Does everybody know what a V number is? Did Dave cover that? So that's the filing system that's used for usually all the roadway plans. It's in the top right corner of your plan section. You'll see it there at the top of the screen. That's that 52V-110. That's a file code, right? This number has to be on all plan sheets that do not have what we're going to cover next, which is the BDS drawing number. So on your bridge sheets, you'll have a BDS number that is in the title block. On traffic sheets, you have something called a TRS number that's in a very similar title block. If you don't have a BDS number or a TRS number, you have to have a V number. But you don't have multiples. One of the other errors that I see is a BDS number and a V number on a sheet, right? So plans don't get filed in 2 different areas, so only 1 filing number per sheet. Common error is that we have references to detail sheets. Under number 1 there, you'll see it says, for details sheet, see sheet BB01. Right? Oftentimes, that will be the wrong sheet. So I'll go look at that sheet and not find the detail that I'm looking for because it's actually on a different sheet. You'll also see that there's a -2 there. That is a quantity notation, right? So that means that there are 2 of those noted on the sheet. So oftentimes, we'll find those quantity notations are left off of the notes. Also, if your note doesn't match what's actually shown on the sheet or in the specifications, then we'll have to have those corrected. So on your typical sections, you actually have references to standard drawing. You'll see down towards the lower left corner, asphalt drainage curb. See standard drawing RD01 or RD701. These are oftentimes left off of the typical sections. Another common error down in the lower left corner of your plan sheets is this basically file naming structure, so you can find where the files are electronically. That's that BR_K number. If those are left off the sheets, they'll come back to you for correction. This one is going to be really hard for you guys to see. And this is one of my personal pet peeves. So you'll always get this back if you do this. But right in the middle of the sheet there, you can't read it from where you're sitting, it says proposed permanent easement. So anybody guess what I don't like about that? Proposed, right? We're creating contract documents here, right? Your plans and your specs become a contract with the person that's doing the construction, the outfit. We're not making a proposal to them. We're telling them this is what we want you to do. So if the plans come with the word proposed on them, I'm going to send them back to you and say, take this off. So other common errors are that in the title block or in the signature block, the designer's names aren't filled out. I see this more commonly in our outsourced projects where the consultant has a bank of drafters and they just say, CAD. What we want is an actual name of a person who's responsible for that. So, down the line, if there are questions about that sheet, we know who to contact about those. So make sure that those are names in there. Also, the stamp sometimes is expired. So we want to make sure that when you submit PS&E, we have current stamps on those. Oftentimes I'll find in our signal and striping and other plans that have legends for work because they have a lot of different symbols, that the work shown on the plans and the symbols in the legends don't always correlate. You'll have stuff in the legend that doesn't appear on the plans or vice versa. So those are corrections that I'm going to send back to you. Additional errors include just not having details that we need if we're asking contractors to do specific things. For example, build a V-bottom ditch, right? We need to have details on where they're starting, where they're stopping, what the side slopes are, what the elevation is. If those details aren't included in the plans, there's no way for the contractor to build that. We also see not posting the construction schedule and not using boilerplate specifications. So those are all errors that will come back to you. In addition to estimate errors, not having bid items included, not having the same name on your bid schedule as is in your special provisions, using expired bid item numbers, and then basically not having correct quantities. Okay, so Christine actually covered this pretty well, LPIFs, so I'm not going to spend a whole lot of time on that because I think that she kind of went through the list. But I will note that there is one very recent change. FHWA just changed their Code of Federal Regulation on patented and proprietary projects. LPIFs are no longer required for those. However, we still have a state contracting statute that says if you specify a certain product and do not include the or approved equal clause, then you have to still do a certification for that. So, but as long as you have that clause in there, it means no additional paperwork. So really think about if you're specifying a certain material, whether you have to limit it to just that one. So examples of state furnished materials, you know, if we have salvaged bridge beams that we want to use, that happens a lot. We also have, if we're doing ITS work, we have a price agreement for VMS signs, so we'll often supply those. We also salvage materials, including guardrail and ITS equipment and those sorts of things. So again, go to the PCO website. You'll find a 20 or so page LPIF manual that that will describe when you need to do them and provide examples, and it's a fantastic resource. So the other thing I want to touch on really briefly is the Buy America. You need to start this really early. The FHWA requires domestic iron and steel in our products. We can use some foreign steel, but it's 0.1% of your project cost, or $2,500, which is most oftentimes not enough. So if you have to do a Buy America waiver, you need to start early. And when I say early, I mean like at DAP, because it takes a year to get these approved. So if you wait till advanced plans, you're not going to make bidlet. E-bids. The only thing that I will add to what Christine said about e-bids is when you're loading your bid reference documents, you need to do those between PS&E and advertisement. Once the project goes to advertisement, we have to write a letter of clarification to add bid reference documents. So, after we advertise the projects, and when I say we, I don't mean PCO, because our procurement office actually does this. Once we get all the revisions to your bid documents put together, PCO advances the project to procurement, and they actually do the advertisement, the bidding, and the award of the project. Once the project goes to add, if we need to change the contract documents, we do an addendum. If we need to change bid reference documents or add answers to questions from bidders, we do a letter of clarifications. These do not become contract documents, but they just go up there for information. Both addendas and letters of clarifications get submitted to PCO. We review them. And then once they're accepted, then we forward those on to procurement to get posted on eBids. Questions? Oh,
Scott,
I think
can you
you need
grab
a
that
mic.
one?
When was the last time you got a Buy America waiver actually approved?
Never.
And-
No, I take that back. I'm sorry. No, actually, never. I've never had one. I did have one that I submitted when I was back in Region 2, probably 5 years ago, but in the time that they were reviewing, FHWA had changed their interpretation of the rule and then told me that what I was asking for was already exempt, so I didn't need it. So, yeah, never.
I thought I would also comment, last time I spoke to FHWA, they told me don't bother. The other question I had is, nowhere in the PS&E checklist did I see anything about a rail order.
So there is nothing on the PS&E checklist about a rail order, I don't think. That's interesting. I'll have to mention that to Michelle.
I think it's under agreements. Wouldn't it be under the IGA? No?
It is not an agreement, it's not a permit, it's a legal document.
Right. Nice.
I don't have a pen, but somebody write that down and send me an email. Okay.
Email is good, thank you. Molly?
Couple of questions. Who do you send the completeness report back to?
That will go back, excuse me, that will go back to the QA specialist that's reviewing that sent you to. So once you finish that, you can send it back to them.
So does it, I guess what I'm looking for is being able to provide your comments back to the tech center. So are you sending it back to me or to the
Oh,
tech,
I'm sorry.
to
I
region?
send it back to the project manager, the PL or the LAL or whoever has submitted that package. Oftentimes, I will also copy the spec writer because they actually do a lot of the corrections, but the PL is the main contact.
Okay. Also, the electronic file number at the bottom of the plan page, in relation to consultant projects, that would be where they have it stored on their system. So how is that really relevant for us?
Yeah, that would be a Dave Pauly question.
Okay.
All I know is it needs to be there, and if it's
Okay.
not there, I'm going to ask you to put it there. But I don't know. Yeah, I don't have the answer for that.
Yeah,
Sorry.
just didn't seeing that it added a lot of value. And then I have a question for David, real quick. When Larry was at OPL, he was crystal clear about if a project came through OPL and it wasn't the greatest thing, the greatest set of plans and specs, he didn't like it. He said it was always up to the regions whether they wanted that plan set to continue out to bid. It was always our decision. Is that going to continue with the new guy?
I think there's a risk call here. We know that we are running into situations with some consultant packages coming in that's maybe not of the quality that we would expect. And it really hinges on what the issues are. If they're line weight issues, potentially we'll let them go through. But if there's a significant difference in, say, estimate of cost, engineer's estimate versus a region estimate versus what's in the STIP, we may put a pause on that. So it's going to be on a case-by-case basis, because at the end of the day, if we don't stop it now, we may end up paying for it more in construction. And so I think at that point, it'd probably be an escalation process with a conversation with the area manager or the region manager and myself and the PCO manager to say, hey, we have some concerns here, and are we ready to take that on as an agency or not under the one ODOT purview?
Okay, thank you.
Quick question. This will need to be our last question.
I noticed, Christine, you had a lot of different operational notices, guides, forms, and different processes that we need to look at. I found that in my short experience here, there's guidance and documents in ProjectWise, there's some on the ODOT intranet website, and there's some on the external website, and there's 3 different documents with all 3 different version controls with different discrepancies. How do I make sure that I'm getting the right document, or I need to reach the right person?
So they should be the same. I'm wondering about the version controls. That might be, are you referring to a scoping document? But the PS&E checklist, get the version that's straight off the PCO website. I would use that one. For LPIFs, again, PCO. The portal should be linking directly to the PCO website. So it's not going to take you to the document. It's going to take you to PCO website, and you scroll down and choose it. Is that correct, Scott? Okay. So I'd go directly, for PS&E, go to PCO. For the other documents within project delivery and operational notices, we'll have to talk. So, and they are being updated too. PDO 2, 7, and 8. Yeah.
It's probably just the ones in ProjectWise, I guess. I take that as the source of truth, and I'm not sure if that's correct or not. But I guess I'm just trying to figure out where is the source of truth, or who is the source of truth. And maybe that's just a broader question or a broader statement. Okay. So whether, I don't know, someone can direct me or direct us as to where we can find that for all different parts of project delivery.
I don't know if
Yeah.
There's a lot of information out there, a lot of templates, guides, tools, manuals, and we're currently trying to get all that cleaned up. So the vision would be to have a one-stop shop for all things project delivery through the project delivery portal. We're still having conversations right now about having a master portal with all things construction, all things technical services, and all things project development. So anything that's project development, from scoping to bid and award, there'll be a one-stop shop. Likely what will happen is those links will send to other links so that we have that one source of truth, and that there aren't duplicate websites with housing old information.
Great, great session, ladies. Thank you very much.